I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, April 2nd, 2018 to order. We've got an additional item we'd like to add to the agenda, and that is a request from Rick Maynard for approval of various court repairs, tennis court repairs. So we add that in, and let's make it, item 8A.
We'll make that motion, 8A.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 1, Pledge of Allegiance. Charlie?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2, Public Forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Hearing none, let's move on to item 3, and that's approved minutes. 3.1 would be the March 13th, 2018 special meeting minutes regarding the hydraulic fracturing ordinance. Is there anything? Any?
Move their approval.
No comments there.
Second?
Second.
Second. Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I wasn't there, so I
Abstain?
Yeah, abstain.
And recusals? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Item 3.2, March 16th, 2018 special meeting minutes. Anyone have any changes, comments, et cetera?
Yeah, I did have a couple, maybe it's a correction. In the section, paragraph that talks about reduction of $1,500 in the Finance Department for budget publication, it says the iPads are in place. The iPads to elected officials.
Right.
I think it would just be a little clearer.
Thank you.
And in the next paragraph down, it discusses, it says this is a savings of, maybe this is correct. I mean, really, it's additional revenue in a sense, right?
Correct.
So
It's an offset.
Would it be, it says it's a savings of $1,700. I'm just not sure that that's as clear. I mean, it seems to me it's an increase in revenue we expect, or can we just leave it as is?
I'm comfortable with it the way it is.
All right, I mean, that's fine. It's not a big deal. I did have one of the, yeah, I'll skip that one.
And you had a third?
I'm good.
You're good?
Thank you.
Anything else? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? None. Motion carries. Item 3.3, March 19th, 2018 regular meeting minutes. Comments, questions, et cetera?
I had just a couple of minor typos.
Certainly, Susan.
Under 4.1 in the first paragraph, at the end of the sentence reads, "They adjusted the budget for this yet." I think it should be year. And then the third paragraph down refers to Ms. Haverda, which should be Mr.
Good catch. No comment, Charlie? Anything else? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
I have to
Opposed?
abstain. I was absent.
One abstention.
Jury duty.
Jury duty, love it. And you didn't get picked, right?
Yeah, I made it.
Item 4, Town Engineer Jim Portley, and it is 4.1 is discuss and take possible action on the request from the Guilford Yacht Club to place a booster pump on the lower east lawn of Chapman Finch Island for its West River dredge operation.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
For the record, I've got to recuse myself on this.
Okay. We have
Guilford Yacht Club is, traditionally does dredging in the West River for navigational enhancements. They have permits from the Corps of Engineers, DEP, and they have recently got their permit renewed to from the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission to dispose of material on site. We submit a letter. Jack Evans, representing them, submitted a letter on 2/27/2018, requesting that they put a booster pump on Chaffinch Island to assist or to make more effective the dredging operation. Looks to be a pretty reasonable request. Kevin McGee has looked at it too. I think Jack Evans, looking at the maps, mislocated where we wanted to put it. When I discussed it with them, they wanted to put the booster pump up on a high land up near where the old house was. There's an old cooking pit there, and I think that's reasonable. And they want it close to the river, obviously, so they don't have to move. But these kinds of things have gone on for years. We've dredging in our harbor, our marina, and the booster pumps have been necessary forever. So I have no objection. I recommend that the Board of Selectmen grant the permit, subject to the, them providing us certificates of insurance. They're going to be putting their equipment on our property, and whatever conditions that town council wants in terms of any legal releases. They're going to be putting their equipment and operating on our property. And if I guess with the last thing I would suggest, and I didn't have it in my memo, is that their representatives meet with Kevin McGee and situate the booster pump on site in conformance with good practice in terms of not disturbing the salt marsh.
Wonderful.
If I could
Yeah.
just add, when you vote on this, getting a certificate of insurance from the yacht club. Sure.
Thanks.
Hello, Jim.
Good morning.
Morning. Condition it on the hold harmless certificate of insurance, and also after consulting with our environmental lawyer with respect to current deep matters, he asked that the yacht club, he presumes, has hired a consultant to have applied for all these permits, Deep and Army Corps, and he would like the yacht club's consultant to make sure with Deep and Army Corps that there's no further authorizations because this booster pump is on town property. So they're hoping that might be the easiest way of approaching that. And now also it is our understanding that it's technically going to be located at Chaffinch Island Park, and the governing body under our ordinance is the Park and Rec Commission, so you would condition your vote to their approval as well. A lot of conditions.
Yes.
How come this isn't just something that is on a barge that they take in and out and go wherever they need to do this?
No, this the booster pump is. They have the barge or it's mudcat dredge. Basically, that pumps to this booster pump that kind of gives it extra oomph to push the spoils across to where the disposal areas. This will be a fixed location for about a week. It's not going to be moved very much.
I had a question about the timing. Their paperwork is very specific that they needed a 3-day good weather window in the month of March, and we're not even receiving this until April. So I wondered why that was, and also the paperwork from Park and Rec, I believe, said that this is all fine with them because the facility isn't really being used now. So what's the new timing, and is it a problem for the use of the
I'll
park?
speak a little bit to that because part of the delay was flushing this out with our environmental council because we're being very careful about Deep and Army Corps approvals. So it wasn't something that we could just jump at.
In addition to that, they did have an accident down there when they were running training for this operation. The Yacht Club had contacted me several weeks ago and said, put it on hold. They didn't give me another date. I assume it's going to be fairly soon because they only have a very narrow window to get this done before certain specific times for the DEP and Corps. So I don't have more dates. We can. I don't think that was really going to affect us much, except that it might affect Rick Maynard, who may have activities. But from my understanding from him, they don't really plan any activities down there for a while.
Any others?
I wondered about the dates too. Do you think it should somewhere be written that they finish by the end of April or something, or not?
I think I would rather hold off making that kind of
Leave it open.
statement until.
Leave it open.
Unless Deep and Army Corps has a
Yeah, I don't know what their dates are.
All right.
It's got to be reviewed by Park and Rec anyway.
Sure. so your
Let Park and
commission
Rec
should take it
determine
up.
what they're going to use their park
That's-
for.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything else? All right, is there a motion to accept the temporary placement of a booster pump on Chaffin Fitch Island for the purposes of Guilford Yacht Club dredging activities subject to the following conditions: receipt of a hold harmless agreement and certificate of insurance, and confirmation by the Guilford Yacht Club consultant that no further authorizations are required from Deep or Army Corps for placements of same on town property, as well as a Guilford Yacht Club representative will meet with Kevin King to confirm the final location of the booster pump. And to the extent the location of the booster pump will be located on a portion of Chaffin Fitch Island Park, the approval of Park and Recreation Commission will be necessary. Anyone want to put that in form of a motion? I just did.
Yeah, well, I'll either make it or I'll second that.
You'll second it. Good. Any further questions? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
We need this.
Bart is out here.
Yeah.
They gotta get it all.
Yeah, so that's a little kicker.
Thank you, Jim. Item 5, consider and take possible action on the purchase of 52 Church Street. Send to the Planning and Zoning Commission for mandatory referral according to Connecticut General Statutes 8-24, and set a town meeting date of Monday, April 16th, 2018, 8:15 a.m. at the Guilford Town Hall. As a way of a little bit of background, we have, the Land Acquisition Committee has been negotiating for quite some time with the small family for their property directly adjacent to Park and Recreations, Park and Rec, the community center at 52 Church Street. This board previously authorized the Land Acquisition Committee to negotiate. We gave them a range within which to negotiate for the purchase price and some conditions related to that purchase. Among them was some inspections, environmental inspections, owing to the fact that the former facility was used as a dental office. We have received a preliminary report from them that there are no concerns, there are no elevated any levels of materials that rise to the level of any concern. And at this point, there seem to be no barriers to us moving forward with the acquisition of this property. I should add that this has been a targeted property for land acquisition for a number of years. Charlie can probably speak to it. It's been going on. This board had contemplated that and had suggested that the acquisition begin negotiations quite some time ago. So, with that, are there any other?
Just so everyone's familiar, it's proximity to the community center.
It's right next door. Yeah, it is. It's the adjacent property to the right as you look at it. And this has been a target of the Land Acquisition Committee as well as the Board of Selectmen and I think Park and Rec Commission, owing to the significant constraints we have at the community center related to parking. This property could be used in a variety of means. There is a significant amount of room behind the house where an additional parking, Rick, was it 20 some odd spaces would be, 20 plus spaces could be accommodated. The facility itself could potentially be used for town offices. There have been discussions about the possibility of moving the food bank there, social services, and then we also are, I think we mentioned at one point, the town is looking for places to store some of its records. Steve Nadorf has been looking for secure area to store.
Just the increased use of the community center since it was built, really, man, the impact on the neighborhood demands that it be expanded at this point.
Any other comment?
Yeah, so the building that's there, at least initially, will continue in some sort of passive use for the town? I mean, like storage or maybe for some other use, or is it automatically going to be torn down and rebuilt?
No, it's not automatically going to be torn down and rebuilt. In fact, there is, we talked, I think, during our budget deliberations that we will more than likely be looking at conducting a feasibility study for all town properties, owing to the fact that Park and Rec is looking for an 8-bay garage. Steve Neidorf has indicated that we have record retention issues. There's long been a discussion about moving the youth and family service, not youth and family services, but social services out of the small house to expand parking at Adams. So I think it's part and parcel of a larger study that we
Yeah, I think it'll probably come out in public hearing or anything, but I envision it a little bit like Youth and Family Services back here, where, you know, a house actually fronts on the street and back there, but we didn't change that, and the office and all of that comes in from the back side. So I don't think there'll be any impact on the neighborhood, but that's for future decisions, so.
Sure.
Leaving the building intact, but utilizing it and accessing it from the community center parking lot would make the most sense, and that's the proposals we've seen. So.
Right, so then there's two things. So the parking in the back would generally be parking
Out of
available
sight,
to the community center, would expand the
Correct.
available parking, public parking in that respect. And if people, let's, for instance, if you did put social services back there, there would be accessible from the back
During the
parking lot.
day,
You wouldn't
like this,
necessarily
yeah.
be walking in the front door.
Less impact on the neighborhood. I mean, that's what it would
Right,
come
and
down
frankly,
to.
for
It-
folks using the services, I mean, there's just a little bit of ability to go into the back, so.
There's obviously a big parking crunch in town to begin with, and it's been under great discussion by the Economic Development Commission. So it all ties in.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
So what do we need, a motion on
Well,
this?
yeah, just in terms of time,
Setting a date.
You're
Okay.
setting the town.
Can I also
meeting
just
date,
wait-
And you're recommending
Right.
the purchase to the town meeting. You
Right.
can say that.
And one other comment that we had at our meeting when this came up originally, we got these reports, obviously, on the environmental, the lead and asbestos, and then the special environmental. Mr. Saylor prepared. It looks like, as you said, the concerns about the former dental use.
Use, right, have been
Any
alleviated.
comments specifically that there's no problem with
Right.
mercury that it could find, so.
Correct.
And to Matt's point, you know, we have had discussions throughout executive sessions. It isn't as if this is the first time we're talking about it and passing it on to, you know, it's been in negotiation for months, if not years, so.
Yeah. And I think we also need to, no, I don't need to, but I'd like to point out one of the conditions was that we would close no sooner than 30 days from approval by the town meeting, because this will need to go to town meeting for approval for this purchase, and no later than a year, as I understand. So it may or may not be town property shortly, but it will be town property within a year from the close of the meeting date, and the price will remain the same. Pardon?
I didn't know whether you wanted to just acknowledge, Gary put a lot of work.
Oh, yes,
into
yes,
this,
thank you, yeah.
As did Kevin.
Yes, Kevin McGee, Gary McKelney were the lead negotiators on this acquisition, so thank you very much to them. Thank you, Pam.
And we might want to mention that the sellers are been very positive about this transaction.
Right.
No coercion.
Yes, this is not eminent domain.
Right, I wasn't going to bring
Okay,
up the
thank
phrase,
you.
but
This is when opportunity meets.
win-win.
Right.
This is when opportunity meets chance.
Patience paid off.
Exactly. All right. Is there a motion to recommend the purchase of 52 Church Street and to send it to Planning and Zoning Commission for mandatory referral, as well as set a town meeting date of Monday, April 16th, 2018, 8:15 a.m. at Guilford Town Hall?
so moved.
Second. Any further comments or questions? Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Hearing none. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, appointments and resignations. 6.1, act on recommendation to reappoint Mark Capola to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a term to expire February 28, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Hearing none. Motion carries. Act on 6.2, act on a recommendation to move Cliff McGuire from alternate to regular member on the Marina Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire November 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Hearing none. Motion carries. 6.3, act on a recommendation to appoint Stephen Goldsmith to the Marina Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire May 30th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Hearing none, motion carries. 6.4, act on resignation received from Delaney Lundberg from the Human Services Council. Is there a motion to do so with?
Regret.
And thanks or appreciation.
Certainly.
There is. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Motion carries. Item 7, act on a request from GHS TAPS to place a sign on the green advertising its high school musical, The School of Rock, taking place April 29th and May 7th, 2018. The sign placement will be April 13th through the 27th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
That's a good one.
Yep.
Can't wait.
Everybody wants to
Yeah.
think. Anyway, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 8, correspondence. Letter received March 19th, 2018 from Matthew Polsell. Have that, any comments or questions?
So why is this coming to our attention here?
Because it was written to us.
Board of Selectmen.
It was addressed to us. And we're forwarding it to the Fire Commission.
I mean, it strikes me as an HR matter at the first
It
instance.
is. It's HR and Fire Commission matter. So,
Okay. Thank you. So that was my question.
Yep.
We'll hear further if we need to. Thank you.
hoping we don't need to. Thank you. 8.2, an email received from Phil Pastor dated March 26, 2018. This is somewhat of an interesting arrangement. This is a gentleman I met during the fall campaign season who had a series of recommendations for the board to consider related to providing some discounted services for seniors. So I just wanted to share this with you folks before I engage Mr. Pastor in some discussion. I will certainly not make any promises on behalf of this board, other than the fact that at some point we will take a look and see whether or not it makes sense to explore these any further than we already have. So,
Needless to say, and not because of my age, but, I do think there's some of these obviously worth pursuing, and anything we can do for any parts of our taxpayer segment, I encourage, but we do have to look at the dollars and cents of it all. I mean, it's just...
And again, I'll read for the benefit of the public. He's suggesting that some considerations for those 75 years of older or possibly 80 or older, no charge for burning permit, free beach passes, parking locations close to the front door of businesses, designated only for non-handicapped elderly. There may be a challenge related to some of the state roads we have here. No charge for the use of conference room in the community center. He had been quoted $30 an hour. No charge for a few photocopies in the various town departments, which are currently $1 a copy. We'll leave his other comment out on that. Absolve those resident older folks of car taxes, and no charge for the use of the stump dump. So put those in the back of your head, and we'll have we'll have some discussion.
Yeah, just two things. One is, it is somewhat, those make sense. I can certainly understand it from his perspective why he's asking a question. So maybe some of these it's good to come up for attention, an occasional review of why we're doing what we're doing. And the worst reason to do anything is because it's always been done that way.
Yeah.
Right? So it's certainly worth taking a look. But it also sort of happens to be contrary to some push on some fronts to, increase user fees on a number of things. So that would be balanced by other folks who would have comments essentially opposite to some of these suggestions. But other than that, I understand the question. Thanks for
We'll throw it in
participating.
Yeah, I mean, there's some amenities that have very limited costs. I mean,
Incremental cost is like beach pass.
And we'll put it on a future meeting for more in-depth discussion. Does that work? 8.3, an email received from Angela Ross dated March 28, 2018. For those in the viewing audience, it's related to the ones 8.4, which is right after it, which are the lights on Boston Terrace leading to the Housing Authority's property there. Steve and I have been back and forth on this. Jim Portland and I have been back and forth on this, as well as Pam Millman. Those are not traditional streetlights lining the route into Boston Terrace. They are more designer-like. In fact, they are the exact same devices that populate the interior portion of the Housing Authority. They were obviously put there when that facility was built. One of the challenges is, or the challenge today is, those lights aren't working. We think there was a possibility of an adjacent driveway along that path may have disrupted the electrical connection. And needless to say, the lights themselves are older than they're not dirt, but they're older than their usable lifespan, perhaps, and probably need to come down. The difficulty here is this is not traditional access. It is the electrical feeds are buried underground. So it's not like hanging some Eversource lights on some poles there. So I've been working with Angela Ross on this for quite some time. Together we engaged Eversource, who put us in touch with some consultants who may have access to some funding to provide some kind of remedy for this. At the very least, I think we're going to wind up having to take them down and pull the power source from it. The question then becomes, do we replace them with anything else at this point?
I think we ought to explore. If it was a private drive that did some damage, maybe that might be the funding source.
Exactly. So needless to say, Steve, myself, Pam, and Angela will be working on this.
And almost regardless of the cause, that's certainly correct. Charlie's right. I mean, if there's some way of defraying the expense because of something somebody else did. But, I mean, it seems to me lighting along walkways is a pretty fundamental thing to address.
To a senior
Again, perfectly reasonable request to bring to our attention.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. The challenge is cost. Angela Ross has been clear that the federal guidelines prohibit them from providing any funding for something along those lines.
I got to say, though, I mean, this is the one off Boston. We put some solar in there, and the solar lighting, street light or access lighting has come a long way.
Right.
I know I put some in my home, and it, I don't know exactly what the cost would be at this level, but I know that, might take care of some. But in your explorations.
Having taken a ride down there recently, it's tree lined. There is not an awful lot, and Steve is nodding his head there. There's not an awful lot of exposure for solar lights on the
top poles.
Yeah. Well, no, these poles are 12, 15 feet high. Okay. They're not traditional telephone poles. These are post lights, which are consistent with the post lights they have in the interior of their facility. And what is clear to me is that these were part of the original construction of the facility. In fact, the power is backfed from the supply in the Housing Authority's facility. So they were part of that original project. And now Angela is contending that they cannot either pay for that, for the electricity to light those, or provide them because it's on a public road. So
Nothing's easy.
nothing is easy, is right. So more to come on that. So that's 8.3 and 8.4. 8.5 is letters from the Marina Commission. You have those in your package. Of particular note is the repair to the sluice dock, and we solicited correspondence from our attorney, our environmental attorney, owing to some of the considerations and discussions we're having with DEEP at this point, and he has given us the opinion and the Marina Commission the opinion that they can go ahead and apply for a permit to repair the sluice dock. The second piece is correspondence relates to the dredging. And we are also, in some of our discussions with DEEP, DEEP has recommended there may be some places that we could assist them in marsh restoration projects by storing those spoils somewhere other than on the identified areas here. So more discussions with DEEP as to where those spoils will most appropriately be placed. So, anything further? Hearing none. Okay, let's move on to 8A, and that is, Rick, you want to come on up and, this is a request from Parks and Rec for repairs and entering into a contract with Ending Tennis. But Rick, why don't you give us your...
Yeah, so this winter has been pretty brutal on the tennis courts and basketball courts, and we've seen more cracks, and usually there's some cracks at the end of the season. But the high school courts actually, I got a call from the high school tennis coach about 2 weeks ago, and he said that they couldn't even play on the courts, they're so bad. So I did send Hending out to do like one crack just to get that. There's one that was really serious because they're practicing now. And so I had said, just, take care of that one, and I'll go to the Board of Selectmen for the rest of it. But I think I sent you a note, with the amount of linear cracks at the high school in Guilford Lakes and the basketball courts at the police department. And so the fees that are included are not only repairing the cracks, but it's recoloring, repainting the courts. The basketball court, especially at the police department, it's getting very slippery because the surface wears off after time, and the paint is like a texturized paint on tennis and basketball courts. And so I think I gave you the numbers. There's like 720 linear feet at the high school, 250 linear feet at the basketball courts, and 150 at linear feet. 250 at Guilford Lakes and 150 at the basketball courts. So the costs that are listed include the filling the cracks and recoloring, restriping these courts. And like I said, this year just unusually bad. And it happens, but this is a larger number than what we normally get. So the total is $44,560. Hending has a state bid number there. So we'd like to request this board to approve that, and the funds would come out of the reimbursable account. We think that's justifiable because it's programs that are on this course, so it's program money that repairs them. And so, anyway, it's $44,560 that we request this board approve Hending to go forward with that.
Rick, just a question. The Adams tennis courts are okay?
Adams we did a year or two ago.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just a fence falling down from the snowstorm, and we got a quote to fix that, which we hopefully that's going to get to real soon. But the courts are not real bad. And we have that in our 5-year capital plan to rip those courts up and redo them with the post-tension concrete.
Right.
So, I mean, if that happens, it doesn't make a lot of sense to put money into fixing the cracks if we end up going forward to rebuild them basically.
Right. And
I think they're 2 years out. I think.
And the commission has approved the use of the reimbursables account for this project.
Yes.
This project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The numbers, so the high school has how many tennis courts?
6.
And Guilford Lakes has,
1.
so it's $11,000 versus $15,000? What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's also the amount of paint. I think one of them they're doing 3 coats. On the basketball court, for example, they're putting 3 coats of paint down versus 2. Part of the cost is not just the cracks, but it's the amount of paint they have to put down in lining. And also at Guilford Lakes, it's lined for tennis and pickleball, so it's double kinds of lines and stuff, so it adds to the cost.
Oh. Okay, and these surfaces otherwise this is just routine maintenance that will extend the life of the surface. It's not like we're putting $44,000 into something we're going to have to tear up and replace in 5 years.
It's a 2-year warranty. Some years they last a little bit longer.
Okay.
But the warranty is 2 years. So if there are any cracks, any of the cracks they fixed, if they're new cracks, obviously those aren't covered. But if any of them that they've repaired, if they re-crack next year or something, they come back at no cost to fix them.
Were the tennis courts at the high school updated at all, or modernized, to use a different term, when the high school was built, or
No.
were they just the way they were prior?
No, but we actually, the cracks were fixed then too, and they were repainted 3 years ago, I think. And we didn't know, but there was some question about with all the blasting they did up there, did that affect anything? But we didn't know. They did crack anyway. Asphalt. This is why I think our recommendation going forward is going to be that post-tension concrete.
That's what I'm asking you. I mean, are we going to keep these surfaces for the foreseeable future? I mean, or are we going to plow this money in and then we're going to hear a proposal in a year and a half to replace everything?
Well, I think, again, Adams is definitely, that's in our radar, but the high school, we'll have to look at that maybe, another 5 years down the line or something.
I mean, if we're getting 5 years out of that expense, I get it.
Yeah. But I don't know that. Again, it's a 2-year warranty. If we can get 3-4 years, we got a bonus.
Anything further?
I'll make the motion that we spend the money to bring them up to speed.
Good. Is there a second?
Second.
Anything further? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals. Hearing none, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank
And
you,
just
Victor.
for you guys to know, there's a Parks and Rec Commission meeting tonight, so I'll bring the Chaffinch Island information to them. I'll get the dates from Kevin or Jim when they think they want to do this, and we'll bring that tonight.
Any more information on Turffield?
We have a
Getting
meeting.
a lot of discussion on
A meeting Friday with the consultant and all the people who are involved with the project.
Have the consultant looked at it and they will be making their report on Friday?
No,
or
it's just our
getting
first initial
started?
meeting with them. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks.
All right, item 9, committee reports. We've got another 10 days to go, or 8 days to go, or whatever it is, before we have to start this discussing in earnest. We said
I like
after
you
the
said,
budget.
start discussing.
Old business, anybody have anything under old business they want to bring up?
I'm not sure if this is old or new, but a question was posed to me regarding the status of the task force or committee on the walkways and pathways in town.
We haven't finalized the charge, and I think it is 14 volunteers for that committee at this point. And as I said, we still haven't finalized the final wording on the charge for it, and having discussions with several of those volunteers related to a chairman of that board. So it is soon to happen.
If someone was interested, the final committee has not been set?
No, it's not
They
been
can
set.
bring
They
the
can-
request to your attention?
Yes.
At town-
Okay.
at the first selectman's office?
Exactly. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? New business. We had some brief discussions, I think, and then I had some more in-depth discussions with Lou, and Lou has volunteered.
It's the meeting, huh?
Yeah, right, exactly.
No, we had some discussions, and this is about us taking a look at the building fees over at Town Hall. And Lou has agreed that he'd be willing to participate in a subcommittee on that. I didn't know if there was anyone else who wanted to.
I'm willing to.
And, all right. I also got word that Russ Campaign, who's got some familiarity with those, is willing to participate as well.
Deals with other towns.
So we get somebody from outside, and then I will volunteer the services of staff. Who's that in the yellow sweater back there? All right. I already have some data from CCM related to what our neighboring
Is this
community.
only building department or all fees? Because you had referred to
Well, I
all
think we
fees.
probably should look at all, but I think the focus should be on building fees, because word has it that that we are substantially behind our neighboring communities.
But I do think it's worth, it's been years since I've heard of any actual review. Both Park and Rec and even Fire Department. I think Fire Department are fairly controlled fees, but
For the purpose of this, I'd like to stick with the building for this one. Let's get
Okay.
through
Start
that.
somewhere.
Let's get through that, and then we'll make a determination
I
on
think,
moving forward.
right after the, for lack of a better term, the Great Recession, the Board of Selectmen at the time encouraged town departments to review their fees and look and see if it made sense to raise them in light of raising more revenue. And I think it did happen at that time, but that was 10 years ago.
Ago.
So.
True. As well. Yeah. I'm not sure our building fees were raised at that
Right,
point.
I'm not sure either. And
Again,
it wasn't an official committee, it was just,
all right, so Lou, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that.
Happy to do it.
Anything else under new business? Public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusal? That motion carries as well.
Go figure. That's the tough one.
Our quickest meeting to date. Get you guys to work. Some of you to work.